You don't want to miss it. From $8 in the pocket to the empire. Episode number 4 with Vib Jain, co-owner of Atria Development, is live. He will reveal 6 leading stories. Number 1, arriving in the country with only $8. From failed ventures to real estate empire, how to build your wealth, beating the shell at their own game, bold moves that changed everything, and son's sacrifice for his mother. I'm Matt Mack, and I welcome you to Bloody Mavericks, where sanity takes a back seat. Vip, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here.
Awesome. So we're gonna start with the background piece, and I hope my blind guess into samosas was all right.
Yes, they were really good.
Okay.
I'm a picky person when it comes to Indian food. All Indians are.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so these are good.
Awesome. So is there, like, because we just spoke about your food preferences, and so on Indian side, what would you be going after? Like, what's regional for your family, where your family is from? Because in India itself, it's humongous, and there are so many different cultures and small different languages and all of that, right?
We're north. We're mostly from the north. My mom's from the state of Rajasthan, and so that's more of the desert area, and so their North Indian cuisine is sort of what works for us. And then, of course, we're Jain, so we're strict vegetarians.
Okay.
Hence the veggie samosas.
Hence the veggie samosas and meat ones for me as well, so I can test both. Let's dig in. Let's figure it out. So,
I already kind of started already.
Yeah, good for you. I'm gonna try probably with these. So.
Now look at, you got the right amount of spice. I like it.
Yeah.
And they're not greasy.
Mine is really good as well. It's like, it's on the edge of
spicy?
Spicy, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty good. Pretty good. I love it. So, Vip, tell me, you told me about your mother from the northern part. Is your father from somewhere else?
No, they met in Delhi when they were younger, and but I'm talking more historically speaking. They were from the. I think my mom's family was there 2-3 generations ago, and then it's a desert, so living becomes a little bit more challenging. So they kind of moved around. There's I think a place called Multan, which is a part of India as well. It got sectioned off during the partition, so that's when they relocated to Delhi.
Okay.
And that's where she had met my dad. Well, she was very little, of course, during the separation. It was in the late 40s, I think, 46 or 48 or something like that. And so she was really young, and so when she grew up, she went to university, and she had met my dad, and there's a little bit of difference in age, but my dad got his engineering degree and then got married.
Awesome. Okay, like, tell me about the story of the move coming here, and like, your father started almost a revolution in lofts and finding opportunity in the haystack and being a precursor to what's right now pretty fancy in the area, right?
Yeah, part of it is it's funny how life treats you. He got an engineering degree in India and went to Germany and did a couple of years there on his own, and it was very challenging. It's in the late 50s.
Okay.
He went there, just after the war, so it's pretty tough. Vegetarian food was pretty uncommon. So for a young kid graduating engineering who's vegetarian, staying in Germany was pretty tough. But he did it for a couple of years and just didn't agree with them. So he went to Canada and came to Toronto and he liked it was a little milder than in Germany.
In Germany.
Yeah. But he loved, like, Germany actually had a profound effect on him. Hence, my brother's name is Hans. And so, he there was a lot of amazing, he learned the language and really immersed himself there. But the food, I think, was the big factor why he couldn't stay there, because everything was bland and, water really wasn't that clean. So he had, beer, I guess, was cheaper than water, which is interesting.
Yeah. That's Germany for you, actually.
Yeah, so then that's why he kind of came into Canada. And, I think his long-term goal was maybe to go to the States, but he loved Canada, Toronto specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, it just, it was a little bit challenging when he was kind of growing up, was staying in Toronto, trying to get a job as an engineer. He had his Ontario equivalency done. He had a PEng with Ontario, but he couldn't get a job and as an engineer. So he was trying to work for larger companies. They were saying he was underqualified, and so he figured, well, okay, let's go get a master's. So he went to Ohio State, one of the fastest students for getting a master's degree. I think he did it, I could be wrong, somewhere around 8 or 9 months.
Okay. Yeah,
so
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he was pretty focused. So he went in there just to try to, because what money he doesn't make, he's not earning. So
yeah, of course.
So then he got a job, I think, with Pittsburgh Steel. I think it was a steel company. I think it said Pittsburgh Steel. And
so just to be clear, because the story itself is fascinating, but were you guys just moving around with him, or he was going by himself?
So I should maybe give the dates. Yeah. So he originally went to Germany, I think late 50s, stayed there for 2 years. So then it was around 62 that he came into Canada. And then he was looking around for a job for a bit of time. Yeah. And then went to Ohio State, I think 63. And then did that. And then started working in so we're talking the 60s. I'm a 70s baby, so I wasn't.
Yeah,
I
wasn't around.
I wasn't around. It was just a thought, maybe. He wasn't even married at the time either. It was just him. So then, story has it that he was working with Pittsburgh Steel, and at this point he had immigrated my grandmother, his mom and dad, over.
Okay.
It wasn't really his idea to go to this Ohio State to go to school. He thought he can get a job and just, slowly bring over family, to a little bit more stable, a little bit easier environment, correct. And when he had to go to the States, my grandmother was really tired of this. She's like, why are we here? It's just me and your dad, and we're alone. I mean, yes, things are better, but like, I'd rather go home. So at that point, she was getting a little homesick. There's no sun. And so he kind of promised her. He says, okay, it's Thursday. I'll be there for Saturday morning, so make sure you have some breakfast. She goes, his name is Gyan. He goes, Gyan, you can't do this to me. That's not nice. She goes, Mom, I'll be there on Saturday. Just calm down. Saturday, first thing in the morning, and we'll figure it out. So sure enough, he goes to his boss and he says, look, it was Friday, excuse me. He goes, listen, I gotta go. And his boss is like, what do you mean you gotta go? He goes, I gotta go. My mom's calling me. He goes, oh, so how long do you want to go for? He goes, I'm going and I'm not coming back. And he goes, look, is it about money or something? He's like, no. He goes, I can give you a raise. He's like, it's not about the money. It's about, a son's love for his mom. My mom's upset. And there's no money in the world that's going to keep me here, so I gotta go. So the guy was pretty cool. He was a little bit taken aback by that kind of, love for a mom, and he actually got fired. So
whoa, the boss got fired?
No, the boss fired my dad.
Oh, okay.
To give him severance.
That was nice of him.
Very nice, yeah. So he goes, like, I'd never heard anybody quitting his job for his mom. It's like, might happen once in a lifetime, so yeah, you're fired. So it was almost like the episode of Friends, The Office. I watched that opposite. People trying to quit, they don't get quit, they get fired. So it was kind of funny. My dad really appreciated it because literally he wasn't going to another job. He was just going to, so he packed up his bags, got everything into a car, drove like a crazy man, and got home at Saturday morning, and to be on time for breakfast. So that's the kind of person my dad is, and I think that kind of personality of like how, family means so much, is instilled in him, and he's given that to us. So family is important.
Awesome. It's actually super awesome story to see how he was going all around, like starting in the Germany, then coming to Canada, going to US, coming back to Canada. Like everything was like the full circle. Even though he tried to start in Canada, it didn't work out, so he went over there and come back. And tell me more. What happened next?
Well, I mean, at that point, he had met my mom in India, but because he didn't have a job, you know what the kids think today, like, I don't want to get married until I have a job and be settled.
Yeah.
So he was a little bit older for an Indian man, but he had liked my mom. And so, but he wasn't ready to make the, to make a commitment of marriage until he felt like he was stable and settled. But as soon as he has his master's, I think that was the turning point for him. He's like, okay, now I should get a job. I'll probably get a job. So he went back to India, got married, and then brought my mom over. Okay. So that was 62. So I think 60. I think by all this time it was like 65, 66 or something.
Okay, let me understand something, because you said something really important that I don't want to miss, and you said like for an Indian man he was an older one. What does that mean? Because
typically, I mean, Indian men and women, they get married in their early 20s, maybe late teens, depending on So for him, he was I thought he was in his late 20s. Okay. So for him, that's a generation. That's the 1960s, man. Like,
of course, it's a different picture for sure.
It's different era, So I mean, if you talk to a lot of parents, they were married in their early 20s, not in their late 20s. So for him, he was a little bit more patient and more, calculating in terms of how this is going to work out. And he didn't want to have a wife that he's just tagging along everywhere just because, and realize that was going to be challenging for her and for him.
So he's back with her here in Canada. He took her back, and what then? Like, what he went and found a job, and then
he went back to the same jobs.
Okay.
And then they said he was overqualified.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That was the nail in the coffin that said, okay, you know what, I'm gonna, there's that whole saying, you gotta fish to eat, you gotta shoot to kill, kind of like, you gotta make your own food. So he's like, okay, well, this isn't gonna be easy. Was there racism? I mean, I don't think my dad ever talks about that, but as a kid speculating.
That's a different generation as well. They don't speak. So, like,
my dad doesn't
thinking about the resemblance to the older generations, even for my parents or grandparents. Like, even if I try to pull any stories out of them, it's really, really hard, right?
Yeah, but like he never talks about it. I don't think he uses it as like as a crutch. But it's certainly, he's like, I totally get my dad the way he thinks. It's a very, everything is so logical. I mean, we're all family of engineers here. I'd say 4 out of the 6 of us are engineers.
Wow.
So so we totally have a way of thinking, and so for him it was like, doors opening, doors closing. That's how he sees it. Like, what are my options? What are my successes and where are my failures? So okay, jobs clearly are failures. I can't do that. So I have to create a job. I have to create a career. So what he had done is, I think he was just looking through opportunities for the paper, and he found Shell. That's an interesting story. Shell Corporation of Gas. Yeah. So they were back in those days. I don't know how it works now, but they were looking for franchise people to run their gas stations. Yeah. And so I think you needed very little capital to put that down and try to get that. And so I think they were able to find that, but they asked for, how it works is the more you have to put down for the better locations.
Of course, yeah.
And sometimes free or next to nothing for the locations that are crap. So he's like, give me the worst one in the city. I want, like, just give it. And so they found one up on the West End, somewhere on I think Black Creek and Western Road, somewhere in that neck of the wood, the stockyards, you know. And so they did, and my father, now with 2 degrees. At this point, his younger brother had come over. And my grandfather, of course, so the 3 men, and then my grandmother, my mom, and my uncle still was single at the time. So it was just the 5 of them, and they were staying in one place and whatnot. And so they're running it. And part of that Shell gas station was a service repair.
Okay.
So what my dad did is hired a couple of service guys, and people would come in. They would take care of the gas, of course, and if there was something that needed to be repaired, go in there and they'd take full. But just like anything else, they had employees, they paid them, but they weren't making money on the repair shop, on the service shop.
It was just like an extra service to keep the clients happy.
Correct. And so, my dad's like, I don't know what we're gonna do. It had 4, then 3, then 2, and I think they're down to 1 guy. And they're like, what are we gonna do? Because we need to have, something more than just gas.
That's right.
So my grandfather had an idea, and this is where my dad, with 2 degrees, and my grandfather, who had a high school degree, said, I got a better idea. Again, fire the 1 or 2 guys left. And he goes, but Dad, what's going to happen? He goes, just trust me. So without knowing exactly what he was going to do, he fired those 2 guys. He goes, put an ad in the paper that we're looking for contractors who fix cars and that we're renting garages.
Okay.
So sure enough, there's a lot of people that came through, and on day 1, he made money because they're willing to pay money for a car, for access to
the garage, right?
To a garage. So whatever that money was. My dad's like, holy shit. It's like, what the heck? I was like, I never thought of that. Yeah, that's a great idea. They made some parts. They made some money on the parts. And the laborers. The labor was, if the guy was good, people would come back and he'd keep the money on the labor. But on the parts, they'd make, I think, 20%.
Yeah.
Not a huge amount, but the big money was they'd pay monthly fees on the
real estate location.
No, just on the on their door.
Okay, yeah.
Garage door. There's 4 bays.
So basically, rental of a bay.
A rental of a bay. So that was his first real estate gig. So, sorry, and so quickly, from a really fastly from a business that was really losing a lot of money, they stabilized. And then, of course, my grandfather, I think there's a whole line of ADHD, because I think I have some of it. He just couldn't stand sitting there waiting for cars to come by. So he's like, Jan, lower the rate. But he goes, Dad, if we lower the rate, we're hurting our profit. He goes, look, I'm here anyways. I'm servicing only 1 car. There's 4 bays, 4 more cars, or 3 more cars that can come here. So if we lower just enough, we can get all these 4 going. We're actually making more, and I'm already here. How hard in those days? You remember how you can click on those things and it just sits there, and you're not sitting there holding it. So it has those automated, semi-automated triggers, I think. So that's what he would do, and of course, lowering gas in those days, like any day. Creates a bit of a lineup, and that's what it was great. So a lot of people coming in there and just getting that, buying the windshield fluids and this and that. So they were making some, money on the confectionery stuff, not food or anything. In those days, I don't think they had much food, or if any food. But so they were making some extra money on something. So it turned out to be quite profitable. But with those long lineups, it also created a bit of attention in the area, and so it was a close society there with the gas station. So Somebody else complained to Shell saying, hey, one of your guys is lowering the rate. It's not good for the industry. Be a good boy. Tell these guys to
bump it up.
Yeah, bump it up. Enough's enough, right? Well, didn't go well with my grandfather. My grandfather's like, wait a second. This is my store right now. I paid for that gas. If I want to give it away for free, it's my business. Who are you guys to kind of come in? So that happened for a while. It was a little bit challenging. There was a lot of notices back and forth, I guess. But eventually what Shell did is they bought the gas station.
Okay.
Kitty corner from them. So they were on the corner. And they started building a new gas station. But this one had a car wash.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
And so they... So now there's 2 gas stations, both Shell, competing with each other. One was corporate, one was my folks. So, and all of a sudden, people are getting free car washes. And anyways, it was one of those things where my dad's like, oh, geez, here we go. So, like, what do we do now? Like, how are you going to compete with a free car wash?
Of course.
It's not to say they lost a lot of sales, but...
Yeah.
So they were trying to fight with now Shell. And so my grandfather, and things were pretty tough back then. So my grandfather said, son, I'm leaving for India. And my dad's like, what are you talking about, leaving for India? Like, I need you now. Like, come on, man. Like, he goes, listen, I'll be back in a week. I have an idea. So my grandfather goes and comes back with 4 suitcases.
Okay.
Filled with cutlery. One full of spoons, one full of knives, one full of, forks and stuff. So he came back with all these suitcases. So now what he was doing is, with the low prices, he'd give every full car wash a utensil. And so that's I don't know when that all happened, but that happened. I know it started at least in the 60s. With my grandfather giving out that all of a sudden, there's an average 4 family and you need 4 utensils, and they would try to come there 16 times. And every time they wanted a car wash, I'm assuming they went across the street, but or more people were pretty happy. I mean, they would talk to they're very communicative people, so they would tell, what was going on and why there's a gas station, and people were pretty supportive of the underdog.
That's awesome.
Part.
That's great. Okay, what was the jump when your father decided that you guys see the opportunity on the East End, which was dilapidated by that time, right?
Well, so just to finish up that last story, because there is a bit of a thing. Up until now, they weren't really making some serious money.
Okay.
So what actually happened, fortunately for them, was Shell bought them out.
Okay.
Shell couldn't compete with
your grandfather, guerrilla marketing.
Yes, right, guerrilla marketing, exactly. And so they gave them a lump sum of money to get out of the contract.
Okay.
That technically was the seed money for our next phase of our sort of thing. And so with that money, they bought some land, eventually made a home, and the other portion of land, they started buying real estate. So, and then they bought some real estate on Cameron Street, just off of Queen Street, downtown.
Yeah.
And so they built a building there. They started renting, and I think that whole thing of bays kind of caught on pretty easy. So that was the basis of how we got into real estate. And just like anything else, you buy something for $1, you fix it up to $3, you sell it for $7, and then you go buy something that's $20 with $7, and like that he started jumping, doubling, tripling,
Basically using leverage to go one step further, right? Each time.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. And it was interesting. He decided to get into that business to be a better dad, I guess, in the sense, spend more time with the kids and whatnot, because he felt he could go to the office one day a month, goes down there, picks up the checks, goes back home. I mean, of course, there's property management that's involved, but
Of course, yeah.
for the most part, it was. But there's a part of my childhood that, you know, he was so busy, constantly working, that you don't see him during the day, and then he worked really late at night. So all that hard work, dedication, I couldn't appreciate it as a kid, but certainly as an adult, when I first became a dad, I realized that sacrifice that he did.
And it's it's the perseverance that you are talking about went through the line into your blood. I'm sure.
Yeah, I think both Hans and I, like, we have the similar work ethics. I mean, we really we don't ask questions. We just try. We're solution based. We just try to find, like, how do we get there? Like, what do we do? What do we do? You know, over time you you slow down a little bit, but but yeah, like, my dad is the OG in our family. You know, like the original gangster. Yeah, he still works. You know, he's 80 something, 83 now. So he gets up early, constantly has his mind going. You know, fingers in so many different pots.
That's amazing. And you guys have multiple businesses in, like, different areas as well, right? Because it started in renting spaces, but right now you've got a development company, you've got holdings, obviously, right? You've got offices that you guys rent and other type of real estate, industrial, commercial, and so on, right?
We do have, it's all kind of under the same umbrella, but yeah, we tried different things. You know, in our earlier days, we had a drywall company, we had a glass company. We tried and it didn't really work out. I mean, you know, I had a lighting company. I don't know if you knew about that, but yeah, so we have all this real estate. So to try to buy light bulbs or this, that, or the other, I tried my hand. It worked for some degree, like especially for our use.
Okay.
Yeah, and understanding all those different areas and those businesses kind of help us become better operators and developers.
That's awesome. So what kind of pushed you, because obviously you started developing quite early, but those were commercials / industrial buildings, am I correct? No. Okay.
There were residential.
Okay.
Yeah, on Cameron Street. I remember my dad and, you know, putting out ads in the paper, meeting up with people. Some showed up, some didn't. And there was a chip store, like fish and chips. We're vegetarians. We didn't have any fish, but we loved the chips. And I can't remember the place, but it was on the corner. So a lot of times we'd meet people there, and I would love to meet people there because French fries were awesome. Yeah. So
going from a gas station and first rentals, how many units are you operating right now and managing at this moment? Like roughly in both areas, like commercial, residential.
There's a few hundred. Yeah.
Okay, so that's way different business than having one property that is renting 4 garage bays.
Yeah, no. My dad came into Canada with $8.
That's amazing.
He's done really well. I mean, you know, you come from like where he grew up. It's very competitive. And I remember his story as to why he left.
Okay.
To be wealthy, this is not, I don't want to paint this, but back in those days, you had to know people, or there's a whole bribery. They talk about, you know, there's a lot of bribery to climb up and do this. And so, you know, my father didn't like that. Didn't like that whole idea of like letting people go or letting himself go through the system, you know, through the system of bribery. So he felt like that was like a contradiction to his entire belief. So he felt like you have to go to a place where, you know, there's rules and then there's policies, and the best person will get the job, not a guy who knows this guy or that guy. Or,
that's right.
You know, here's $20, let this guy go through. No. So that was the reason he left. And so
he definitely is an original gangster and the maverick himself. Like he doesn't come into the same path that everybody goes and just find his own way.
Yeah, he kind of created that old way, his own way, anyways. It's interesting because in India, to be a landlord is not an easy job, and it's actually not looked upon as a great job as an owner of property. It's just the way the land works over there, and like people squatting rights and all this other stuff. It's very, very difficult to get rid of people, and it's a very, so when he first got into that business, my grandfather wasn't the most receptive. Not until after he understood what the laws were in Canada, and that when you own land, it's your land.
Different model.
A much different model, yes. And so, they were a little concerned for my dad, I guess, back home. They're like, oh no, but obviously it's paid off, so we're pretty happy.
Worked out pretty good. So it seems like you are yourself pretty, I wouldn't say devoted, but still kind of focused on your background and where you are coming from, and the stories that there are so still vivid in the way you are telling them about your parents, how they went through. And then, so what made you come into the picture of real estate? What pushed you to, obviously there is a big part of the family engagement and you guys working together. That's what you started with.
Yeah.
But like on the selfish level, what pushed you to real estate and working in the family business?
I think real estate, particularly for me anyways, it sort of checks off a lot of the boxes that bring interest to me. So growing up, to sort of see how my father handled it with limited, not to say he doesn't speak English, but with like a little bit of an Indian accent. So coming through, growing up, seeing some of the limitations that we'd have because of that, and knowing that I had the advantage of not having to do that. I felt like there was a lot of advantages that I had over my dad, and I thought we could do it better. Both Hans and I were really close on that. So when we went through and kind of built and stuff, and like started doing quotes, we would have multiple quotes. My dad didn't have anybody like that. He was by himself. The operations were smaller. He had to, if he had a concrete guy, that was it. He wasn't looking for another concrete guy. Where jobs are big enough, you have to get 3 or 4 quotes, and you still give your concrete guy the last kick at the can, but sometimes it's not him.
That's right.
So we learned how to do that and do proper contracts and things of that nature. So negotiations, dealing with people, quality control, all those kinds of little things. So we're very like I'm engineering based, so I love that stuff, and seeing stuff growing and building, and then taking a walk back and looking at it going, yeah, that was actually a pretty good development. I like it. So we're constantly involving ourselves as well. So if we learn something and something that we like, then we try to constantly retool it and optimize the
how you go about it. Yeah. Okay. So like at the moment, if you would say what is your main focus in the business, and like you mentioned that there are a couple things that draw you into it, but what are those specific things? Like what are those couple?
Oh well, okay. Well, I'll go back on the whole engineering thing. So one of the things that we learned really quickly is, and you can appreciate this because you're in the same business, but there's different ways to wire a house.
Oh yeah.
Right? But imagining now wiring 100 houses or 200 houses. So electrical engineering, and of course through my discipline, you learn and understand how things work, and then talking to electricians and master electricians specifically. There's different ways to do it. And so when engineers would propose doing it a certain way, we would be like, I would be the one questioning it.
Okay.
And so for me, saving money is by redesigning something a little bit more elegant and simple. It'd be more expensive at first, but you're not tying up 20 electrical rooms, you're doing 3.
Yeah, it's going to save you on the long run.
It's going to save you on the long run. And so that's one of the things. So electrical, mechanical is another one. Mechanical both in the HVAC and in plumbing. So again, clean designs, and understanding what fixture counts and all this other stuff, and the size of pipe and how many fixtures per this size and that size.
Yeah.
And understanding just generally how plumbing, mechanical, electrical works, gave us an advantage when people were doing crappy work. I was like, nope, that's not going to pass code. And they're like, what do you know about code? And I'd be like, look, you're only allowed 390s. That's like 5. So take that out. No, do that again, and I'm not paying you for it.
Yeah.
So quickly you realize that people couldn't put a quick one over you,
So basically it seems like everything, because of your degree and going after that part of your education, gave you the advantage of understanding the real estate in general, more the structures of it, the planning, the
structural, and like all the technical stuff that a lot of people just call it mumbo jumbo.
Yeah,
it's not mumbo jumbo. Like, it all makes sense to me,
of course.
And understanding how to like do supports and footings and stuff like that. And so we did all that in like my first year. I guess we did a little bit of general engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So like structural, mechanical, electrical, all those were kind of part of that. They just teach you enough of each of the disciplines so that you kind of know it, but then you focus in on your second, third, and fourth year on the discipline that you wanted to do.
Okay.
So that was kind of helpful. And then those efficiencies, really, really, because they're my projects.
Yeah.
I would calculate exactly to an inch. Like where to do this or where to put this or where to do that. And people were like, okay, that's actually really good. If that's true and those numbers are right, that's a pretty good layout. And so we were pretty successful. I remember one of the costing consultants on our first project were like, there's no way you only spent this amount of money for this far. There's no way. And we're like, well, what? There's no reason for us to lie.
Yeah.
And it's because I used to manage, I think, 20 electricians and mechanical plumbers and everything. Mm-hmm. And that was my technical thing. And Hans was more the juggernaut when he'd come to, he was more the bad cop. I was never.
Okay,
yeah. You met Hans?
Yes.
Yeah, he's the bad cop. So drywalls and those guys, those are ruffians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were tough people, so he would deal with those guys. So yeah.
So basically,
we had our strengths. I guess that's why we worked so well together.
Yeah, you basically divide the workload between two of you and just run with it to the best strengths of each one. Yeah,
that's right, and that's where we're like, sometimes I'd get stuck in the woods, as sort of they say, like this could be more efficient, and similar to our Hans, but that's why we're there. We'd kind of smack each other.
The perfection,
a little bit
coming.
Yeah.
Okay, and how you guys are doing business? How you go about doing your stuff? Tie in with like on the cultural side. Are you, because you're a family business, right?
Yeah.
So with thinking about the company, are you thinking like of it as a family? Are you thinking of it like obviously the numbers that you mentioned, the calculations, everything, that's a strict business, that's analytical kind of thinking and going about the business, but it seems like there's something else to it.
Well, we have our own businesses, and Hans is my only other partner that I have, and we have independence to some degree. We do our own little things, and he does a lot of his own things, and that's fine. And then we rely on each other quite a bit. So sometimes we need some stuff, like we'll share information and we'll try to get the best solution. One of the things that we are really focusing on, and I think this is a lot of, you talk about your cultural, so a lot of, we're pretty strict Jains. Like, I wouldn't, for example, eat the meat samosa. And part of that is just like having like the green, to be green and to be sustainable and to try to reduce your use of animal products and things like that. And so one of the things that we're starting to do in the last, I'd say, 3 years is starting to design and build with green and reusable energy if we can, and sustainable. So we're starting to look at like buildings built from timber.
Okay.
People wonder why that is more green. It's because the amount of energy to make concrete and steel is ridiculous. And the amount of whereas you can use engineered product using wood fibers and polymers is a lot cheaper and easier. So we're trying to move towards that.
Okay. Are you looking into like thermal, solar, wind energy, all those
things? Yeah, and that's my real focus. I love that part. So one of the things that maybe about 5 years ago, I started getting into LEDs. That's when I got into the lighting business, and then we're looking at batteries. Sorry, I call it capacitors.
Yeah.
Sorry, batteries. And you look at PV panels and things of that nature. All those types of things. So that's why I kind of bought a car that's a Tesla.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that was just like
next step.
That was next step. Yeah, I was really happy. Actually, I think the whole energy thing was more like 10 years ago, and then a couple years later, I felt pretty like 7 years from now, 7 years past, I should say, is when I picked up my Tesla. It's a 2016.
Okay.
Still have it. Love it.
Awesome.
Don't really see it. Actually looks like the newest ones out there. The only thing is it's just an older model. They haven't changed the look of it. I love it.
Yeah, that's perfect, right?
Yeah, like an incognito. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely the way you guys are going in your business. Like on what you just mentioned, going through the development of the business. You started with couple doors in the garage or your father started with that with your grandfather, and now you guys are building having in your portfolio huge buildings, but also building new buildings like residential and commercial buildings.
Yeah.
And introducing newer strategies or ways of building and being more sustainable, right?
Yeah.
That's what you go after. So what would be a next kind of goal on your horizon? Yourself personally, your company, where are you guys heading?
Well, I like the green strategies are good. I think we have to sort of set an example, at least for me. I want to set an example for my kids that, money's important. I mean, we're comfortable, obviously.
Yeah.
But we have to think for the future. Someone's got to be the first person that says, okay, you know what? I'm going to start building like this. And so there are some people, we want to be ahead of the curve. We think that that's the right philosophy for our family.
Okay.
And so we want to do that. So I'd like to see how that goes. I mean, we're looking at a couple of projects, making it, integrated sort of projects with the community. We're looking at multi-generational buildings. So meaning young kids to established families and to elders, all in one building. So those are one of the things. We're looking at vertical farms in these buildings, as we realize that a lot of developers are converting these fields into small communities.
Oh yeah.
Food's going to be, farms are going to be
shortage.
There's going to be some shortage down the road, and so I think by putting in vertical farms is going to be really good. And again, it promotes vegetarian.
For sure.
Can't be so we're pretty excited about that. And so we're going to have some projects coming up with those kinds of things.
Okay. All right. That seems like a lot on your plate and a lot of ways that you guys going to be expanding into besides what you already have on your plate, which is a lot.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those things like I think my dad is sort of the teacher in that. Yeah. He used to say something. It was a very English saying. He used to say, an empty mind is like a devil's workshop. So you know, you gotta
Just
be doing
keep it
something.
busy.
Keep it doing something, yeah.
Okay. And so having so many goals and so many directions that you guys are gonna go after, how are you planning, or how you go about setting those goals yourself? What's your
That's a bit challenging. It's like going to a buffet and saying, where do I start first?
correct?
Yeah. You know, I think if it's me, I have a little bit of a more of a challenge with that, only because I have to take a little bit more time to think about that, because I have so many things that I really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, you know, availability to certain doors are not always there.
Yep.
You have to wait. And so, you know, do you wait until the door becomes like available to you, or do you go to another door? So when
That's
you
right.
do that, then the one you're really waiting for is already there, but you can't open it because
Yeah, you took the other one.
I took the other one. So it's one of those things. It's a little frustrating, but
So what's the cherry on the top? The one door that you are waiting for, that you would love to start, but you are still waiting for?
right now, that's timing. It's just like being able to get, well, you can get like the perfect building where it's like designed functionally. It has multi-uses. It's more of a neighbor. It's something that that works with the community. It's not just a simple residential building. I always think mixed buildings are always good, because it'll cut down on traffic. People, if they live upstairs and they come down to work,
That's right.
but then, you know, on the ground floor is a grocery store, and then across the street is this. You can actually have a neighborhood. That's one thing I think, as a lot of these buildings, they become these big buildings of like 2,000 families.
Yeah.
And they don't know each other. There's no connection.
There's
You
just
see them-
mass, right? You cannot. There's too many people to, and you just pass each other on the hallways, right?
Or in the elevators. Yeah. So we want to actually that's the one thing that I really want to do is, so I'm excited. There's a project that we're working on now, working with a few different consultants and stuff. And that's how do we make a building that's community based?
Okay.
So that's can you make something that makes money for a developer? More importantly, most importantly, if you're a developer, you want to make sure you're making some money. How do you make a building that is needed by the community?
Yeah.
That integrates with the community, that looks after different socioeconomic, requirements, people with different socioeconomic backgrounds. So those are all the kinds of things that we're trying to juggle and make sure. And then, of course, there's the whole component of making it sustainable, low energy, zero if you can, net zero.
It sounds pretty familiar to what I'm used to, which is European kind of communities around the markets. Old towns, kind of center of Old Town, always been the marketplace where people were basically trading and gathering every so often. And on the bottom of it, either currently you have a restaurant or a place to visit, or a small hotel, whatever. But on the top, people are living, there are a couple of floors only, and everybody knows everybody because it's such a small and kind of inclusive community.
Correct. And like that's exactly actually where we're getting at. Europe has been around for thousands of years.
That's right.
They've made that whole thing so perfect. And there is a density in Europe, and so we're not creating anything new. What we're creating new, I think, or trying to do new, is to try to bring the whole cost of construction, bring in new techniques and technology into building it with recycled or sustainable type of items and materials. And but to try to mimic what's happening in Europe. And so specifically streets of Paris and Spain, where people gather in the hall, in the streets, and that's where hey, there's Bob, there's Tony, and there's a story for each of them, their characters, and everybody knows them.
That's right.
And then really what happens is it becomes a destination place. People want to be part of that neighborhood, and not because they could afford it. Right now, I think a lot of kids, if you ask them, like, what area suits you better, it's like, well, whatever the rent's the cheapest.
Yep, that's right. That's right, because that's the first thing that comes to mind. The levels of rent in the city are ridiculous, and like, if for a young person to think about buying a house in the city, that's out of the question for especially younger and younger generations, right? So it's getting like, in the 70s it was affordable, it was still in the brackets and you can pay it off. Right now it's multiple of whatever you can earn, unless you are on the C-suite and getting those kind of money. That's a different story. But for a lot of young people, this city is becoming less and less affordable, right?
Correct. And so that's why it's important for us to get multi-generational people in the building and different socioeconomic backgrounds. It's important to get a good snap of Toronto.
Yeah.
We're not looking to go to one specific group. We're looking for, and that's what's diversity. We're definitely looking for like a community. That's the big word, I think, for our families, building a community.
That's pretty amazing, because this is one of the things in the city that I'm missing. The only other two cities that I can think of in Canada that has it is Quebec City. Yeah. They have old town, real time old town that you can walk through, and that, like, if you think about it, Toronto is not for pedestrians. It's the sideways are so narrow, and like at the end of the day, I'm thinking, is it even for people who are driving cars? Because like in here where we are right now, it's so ridiculously challenging. Yeah, every day to find a parking spot, even, right? Or drive through those streets because are getting clogged, and it's the city is growing too fast to its possibilities, really.
No, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that is actually the designer that we have. His name is Douglas Cardinal. He's a world-renowned, famous indigenous architect, and he has a war against cars. He can't stand cars. He goes, why are we building structures and cities around cars? We should be building around the people. Yeah, that's right. And the cars should be secondary. So somewhere down, like, a few hundred years ago, decided that they were going to build pathways for cars. And then they build buildings around pathways. Yeah. And then humans are inside the buildings that are around, But the focus should be around humans. So it's exactly it. So one of the things that his sort of approach is to take over some of the streets, shut down on the weekends, make it so that the buildings unload, and then people actually do not leave the area, but they stay there. Yeah. And they share the neighborhood.
Basically gardens outside of the buildings,
or just like cobblestones where they sit down and just drink coffee, espresso, have a breakfast outside.
Just enjoy the neighborhood.
Enjoy the neighborhood, talk to people. People don't communicate, especially now in the last 3 years, or whatever, with COVID. Yeah. It's even less.
It is.
How do you open those up again? So.
Yeah, and I think at some point during the design of the city, someone decided to kind of start removing those old structures, old buildings, and replace them with brand new high scrapers that's gonna basically, instead of having, let's say, 20 to 40 units, have 400 to 600 units, because the real estate is worth way more if you go up, right? And
I mean, and those are the city is growing. I mean, I think those are going to be unavoidable, having tall buildings, but it's the responsibility, I feel, of the developer and the architect, and mostly the city, to somehow engage with those people.
Yeah.
So that, okay, you got all these people here. Now, how do you...
Yeah, how you go about it.
Okay, how do you get these guys to not... You don't want them to drive. We want to keep traffic down.
Yeah.
We need services. You need entertainment. You need to do this, do that. I mean, so I think there's a bigger responsibility in the city to say, okay, guys, developers, I get that you want to build a nice tall building, but you know what's missing in here? We're missing X, Y, and Z. Pick something.
Yep.
You want this because now we're going to hold these people in this area. We're going to captivate their energy and get them to stay here. Otherwise, they're just going to all get into a car.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to scoot off to here, scoot off to there.
So it seems like you want to go about basically pushing out some policies to the city to start thinking about people more as a bigger picture, no?
I'd love to. I don't have the energy. I'm not young enough.
not getting into the politics.
No, I can't. I don't have much patience for that. But hopefully, people sort of take note and they sort of see the way that we're sort of designing this. We're taking a much different role. It's interesting when I was talking to our planners that one of the reasons they really wanted to take this on was because they said, it's refreshing to sort of see that we're taking this project from a different design angle. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, of course, as a developer, I want to make money, so yeah. I'm not going to apologize for that. But it doesn't mean that this community and everybody around us can't win either.
Yeah.
So to put in the right services that the community needs. And like calling it a hub, like Leslieville, that's where, this particular project is. Is there a hub for Leslieville? If you really think of Leslieville, like what do you think of Leslieville? So, and where do people go? And so there's like a lot's going on there. And again, the city has not sort of made a central location for this. And so I think it needs some direction from planners in the city, I think.
Okay.
But, maybe it's harder than I think it is. I don't know.
It seems like a big challenge. That's what I'm hearing. And this city has its challenges. And like the subway, it's supposed to be running some time ago, and it's still not running, the new lines. And, and those lines, when they're going to be running, they're going to be already like capacity going to be full. So at that time, we probably would need a couple other ones that are going to be going at it, right? So changing a little bit of the subject.
Sure.
How would you, like on the discovery note, where would you go? What would you like to discover? Are you still like, are you going to India, or is there anything there that you want to discover? Anything about Canada, because you are a Canadian, you are born here, and like anything that is here or there that you still want to go about and see?
I just came back from India. It wasn't more of a discovery trip. But yeah, I think India, like that's where my parents are from. That's where I get some of my all my DNA actually. Both parents from India. I'd love to explore. I did go to a place called Vizag. It's short for something else, but it's on the East Coast, the Bay of Bengal, and it's quite interesting. It's such a huge country, so yeah, I'd love to see more of that. But in terms of Canada, I feel that I've been so focused on work that I haven't really been traveling much. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to see right across Canada. I mean, I've been to most parts of Canada. Yeah. I wanted to travel north. Mm-hmm. But I am Indian.
North Bay.
Sorry.
North Bay, seeing the polar bears.
And... for way further North Bay. But yeah, like I'd love to go to Inuit.
Territories.
Yeah, Northwest Territories up in the Arctic area, maybe during the summer. I want to explore the Borealis lights and all those things. That is definitely a bucket list for me.
Those are beautiful. to see. So
Have you seen them?
I've seen them in Norway, so yeah.
Oh wow, yeah,
They're
it's
amazing.
next level stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just get to do those types of things now. I'm starting to do more administrative stuff so I can take time away from being away from the office. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Okay.
What I want to do now is run through a couple questions.
Well,
I'm gonna bounce off of you, and we're gonna start with the easy one.
No
and
boy.
Then we're gonna go.
It's gonna get hard. It's gonna get tough. Okay.
A little bit of thinking, a little bit of going at it, and who's your ideal client for starters?
Oh, for rentals.
In general, like thinking about your business, what you do. Yeah.
Somebody technically, somebody in the tech business, somebody who's artistic. We have so many variety, whether it's in the makeup. So we spoke with Ryan. So he had introduced me to someone that does special effects.
Yeah.
On Star Trek, for example.
That's right.
And so this person is like awesome. And she's a young lady, and I'm in awe of young people coming in, taking chances, renting space, not having a father like mine, and then like going all in, full. Here you go. They take a chance on this on themselves.
Yeah.
And I love to follow them to find out how well they do, and no surprise, they do super well. So those are the guys that I really fight for or try to keep in my business.
So it seems like you're looking for some Mavericks to.
Oh yeah, that's
to
true.
Be in your community, really.
Yeah, somebody that believes in themselves and just needs a little bit of little encouragement. And I'm almost 50, and so if I can shed some good words of wisdom that my father and his father before him sort of passed on, and
that's why you are here.
Possibly, yes, certainly.
To share that wisdom. So what do you do for fun?
I love to golf. I got to be honest with you. If you asked me that like 3 years ago, I'd say watch like hockey or playing hockey, street hockey. I don't actually play ice hockey, but that first year of pandemic almost killed me. And then one of the sports that you could play was golf.
Yeah.
So I dusted my golf clubs and we went out and then I really just appreciated it. Just really, like, there was nothing else to do. So I think I played like 40 times. After the third time, in the old days when you used to play, I used to have a few drinks and this, that, and the other. And I used to literally golf once a year.
Okay, yeah.
For 20 years.
That's kind of a golfer I am.
Yeah. Like once a year, I had to go to a tournament, that kind of thing, and that was it. And then, and now for golfing for me is like strictly no drinks. Like maybe a drink, but just it's mostly about dedication and determination and muscle memory. I'm always talking about muscle memory with golf because that's exactly the only way you're gonna get to be a scratch golfer. Anyways, so right. Golf, love golf.
What's your biggest problem?
I always put myself on such a high expectation to doing certain things, and I generally get mad at myself when I'm like, damn, I forgot to do that, or damn, I didn't do something. And then when you have sometimes employees that work for you and they are not close to the level of expectation, that gets frustrating.
Yep.
Because you're like, I should have done that. I could have done a way better job. This is bananas. Like you just start like, and so you start questioning like, is this the right? And then what you just have to understand, and I've started to come into this about the last 5 years, is everybody's good at doing something. And I might be fortunate enough to be good at maybe slightly more things or the same amount of things, but different things.
That's right.
But then I'm crap at a bunch of other ones. And so it's trying to find people that work around you to fit up all the holes. And so,
that's the biggest one.
Yeah, it is frustrating because it's like understanding that about yourself. and not taking it to you when you go to sleep or wake up in the next day. So that's been something that I think I've honed in on myself for the last, I think, 5 or 10 years, and I'm becoming better at it.
People skills.
People skills, I think so. Yeah, I've always been good with people. It's more I would never, it's not my nature to ever lash out on anybody. You work with me.
Yeah.
I've been frustrated, but I never went and said, never
Drop
gave
the big guns. Yeah.
No, but like there's guys out there, I mean, contractors, they fucking lose their mind on you.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so
For sure.
but that's not, I've never, my dad's always said, you're not going to get anything with that.
No, you're not getting any respect of people either. So
No.
On the other note, what are the financial lessons, tricks, strategies, anything that you wished when you were younger you learned faster that you could implement to your business that made a significant step forward for you in terms of business finance?
Oh, I don't know that, I was always thought, like, should I have gotten an MBA? And I don't know what the right answer is. Understanding about business and how to make money and like what my dad did, we've always known that. As kids, we grew up with those, like the way my dad, I explained earlier, buying something for $1, increasing the value to 3, then borrowing 2, getting back your $1, and now you have an extra $1. You use those $2 to go buy something else, and like this, and renovate, buy, sell, rent, valuation. Those are always kind of something in our family. It was just, I wish we had, if there was something, you're asking me what skills, right? Patience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm slightly, I haven't been diagnosed for anything, but I'm slightly ADHD, I think. So we talked about those doors, waiting for those doors.
Yeah.
Sometimes just wait for those doors.
Okay.
Patience is a virtue.
Yeah.
It is so true.
It is.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to bunker in, just wait, be patient. It's going to come.
3 favorite books that everybody should read.
Oh, gosh.
Or 1, whatever.
Oh my gosh, I'm horrible with names.
Paint the picture.
Jeez. An actual book I haven't read in a while. I did the whole...
You do listen or...
No, not audio tapes. So what I actually read, funny enough, is I read a lot of small business market news, market updates. And so I spend my time understanding who my industry or technology, those are things that I kind of get a little bit of a rise on. I've been asked, got a girlfriend now, so she's like, you gotta snap out of it. Like, you gotta read something more for your mind, just to, like self-help books or just something fun.
Like a fiction or
Like,
non-fiction,
well,
whatever,
what
just something,
Yeah, but I don't. Why read that? I just sit back and just watch get some popcorn and watch movies. But I think I should probably read some. I actually have this book that I really, really want to read. It's The Master Negotiator. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, of course. Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss.
That's right, Chris Voss. Right, there you go. That's the one.
Go at it. I fully recommend it. I've been on 2 trainings with those guys. Amazing.
Yeah, so I think that's actually part of it. I did read, and it was kind of an interesting thing. They were saying something about, if you're fair, then you don't negotiate. So that was an actual interesting concept, and so it actually has changed the way I negotiate now, which I don't now. I already know that I'm fair at some point, and then I'm like, guys, look, you go do your due diligence. It's like typically when it comes to like leasing rates or something.
That's right.
So somebody says, X, and I say, no, there's no way I'm going to do X. Come on. I got a family, I got mortgages, I got this. The best I can do is X plus 5. And then they say, X plus 5. Whoa, I don't know. I go, here's two agents. There's that building there. There's this building over here. They're relatively the same. Why don't you just look up online? You don't want to call them? Just look up online. MLS, that's great for me. And then when they realize it's X plus 10, and then I come back with X plus 5, they realize that I'm being fair. So my biggest win, or how I get, is when they come back to me and they said, you were fair. So that's the nicest compliment I can get.
Awesome. That's amazing. On the side, we have been speaking a little bit about the community and what you guys are pushing out there and what you want to do in terms of your goals. In terms of community, what would you do to help someone else feel that they belong into the community?
My dad's actually last 15 or 20, almost 15 years has, because he was been so successful, him and my mom and the entire family, for that matter, we've supported bringing in Jainism into the community. There's a lot of my dad was probably one of the first few Jains in the early 60s. And it was really hard for him to worship and this, that, and the other. And over time, the community developed. But in case nobody knows, but the Jains represent only 0.5% of the total Indian population. So we're tiny.
Yeah.
So coming into Canada, there was very small numbers. So more recently, he had bought a parcel of land and has got... donated a portion of it, built a temple, and has built a phase 2, which is this community center, and has plans for stuff in the future, which he's too old to start now, but I think between me and my brothers, we'll probably try to tackle it. So bringing those communities and offering a place for some of them to congregate, stay, live, while being close to a temple. I think that's a lot of faiths have it.
That's right.
So to try to do that, I think, is great. And then, like I just told you about, just multi-generational buildings and stuff like that. Those are some really good ideas.
Yeah, 100%. That's what is lacking here, and definitely there's room for people, and there is interest in people wanting to get back to communities. A lot of people are just striving for connection again, right? And
yeah, but like, just think about, sometimes you have a single parent, right? And you live in the city, and then you have to get into a freaking car. You have to go see your parent, and you want to spend more time with them.
Yeah.
But imagine if they were in a different part of the building, completely on their own. They have their own apartment. Maybe there's some special care around the corner.
That's right.
And they have autonomy, they have privacy, they have, so you can live your life, they can live their life, but they're within really a walking distance. And so those are kinds of the things that, like, we're talking about modeling the new. You don't want to do everything in a building, and I get that.
Yeah, of course.
But, if you can, I think we spend way too much time in cars. I mean, I think that more than anybody, because
I drive a lot, 100%, and it would be lovely to be working and living in the area which is really friendly for the community, and just the businesses are there, people want to meet and know each other. That's a great concept, 100%. I definitely agree. And for people who do not know, what's really specific about the Jain religion itself?
I'm going to dumb it down just because.
Of course, yeah.
It's a fairly old religion. So when Hans and I, when people ask us, and Hans is beside me, I just stay quiet because he's way more vocal with that one. But it's a religion of within yourself. It's about an individual aspiration to, living a simple life.
Mm-hmm.
Living one within the universe, one without affecting others around you. So like we're vegetarians.
Mm-hmm.
We try not to be in the business of trading meats or leathers or things of that nature. We're traders typically. What else is there? And we try to minimize our impact on things, small little things that people like. For example, if there's spiders in rooms or something like that, we don't kill them. We take them and toss them. We don't walk on wet grass because there's worms or other animals that are coming out. We walk on sidewalks, or we don't walk.
That's great. That's great. And going from there, that's the community that you kind of feel that you belong the most, or have you built your, like, obviously being born here and spending all your lifetime in Canada, have you built, besides the religion, have you built like a broader community, and what does that mean for you? Like, do you feel like you have your own tribe?
Well, I think that's the big project you were talking about. That's what we're trying to do. We're in the process of that. Have we done it? I mean, to some degree. My father sort of came in the mid '80s in the Carla, Dundas area, and started ripping off plywood off old manufacturing buildings. And he was told he was going to lose his shirt, and told by multiple people, don't do that. People are going to break in, and that was the beginning of the regeneration of that sort of area, right? So now it's vibrant. There's young people. There's Brad Lamb's building. There's all these different developers that are coming in.
That's right.
Fern, yeah. So, so I think that was a community, a start of a community, and we want to now finish that.
Oh yeah, like the iZone itself was the precursor, as we spoke to.
Yeah,
to lofts, to those, all the nice and amazing properties down there in that area, right?
Correct.
And okay, and on the other note, that's the deeper one that I wanted to ask. So, what's the question you would like to be asked more often?
That's a good question. What is a question I'd like to be asked more often? Oh, what's my most what's maybe my what am I most proud of?
I've got, next one is really similar to it, so you can stay on that note. Next one is, what have been the greatest day of your life?
Dates?
Day. A day.
Well, it kind of ties in. I think the birth of my 3 kids, without a doubt. I mean,
and that's the proud.
Oh yeah, I'm like I'm dad. Yeah, dad first. Yeah, part of how I sort of manage how I do business is because I want, if ever somebody was to rewrite how things went down or how dad did business, I want them to say, you know what, dad did it right. So if I'm gonna be judged and down the road and by my kids, or they're like, oh, I wouldn't have done it like that, Dad, but you know what, you had the right, the right spirit and heart to do that. I think, yeah, my kids, they're the only ones that can drive me bananas, and but I'll do it over again, like a psycho, like a parent that just keeps,
coming at it back and forth constantly until
so that would be it.
A lot of amazing stories, and going through all the family journey, going through all your businesses and the ventures where you guys are going towards. I'm looking forward to seeing where that all is going and how the new community is going to be building in the city, and you're going to be the precursors of them. So I'm definitely going to be cheerleading on the side, and helping as much as I can, hopefully. And amazing conversation. Thank you, Vic,
thank you
for coming over.
Appreciate it, man.
Amazing stories.
And it's a wrap. We dare you. If you are bold enough, hit subscribe, repost the rebellion, and don't miss out on next week's episode. It's going to be bloody brilliant. See you on the next one.